Let's call it City Taker Secrets. We'll be reading the gospel according to St. Luke, the 19th chapter, and 4 or 5 verses. And Jesus entered and passed through, verse 2, verse 3, and verse 4. Verse 5. Make haste and come down, for today I must abide at thy house. Verse 6. And he made haste and came down and received. May the Lord bless the reading of his word in our hearts in the name of Jesus. Call it Operation Jericho to Jerusalem. Jesus is entering Jericho, but he's not stopping at Jericho. Jericho is not destination. Jericho is transportation. Preach it to somebody. If you know anything about Jesus, it should be that Jesus always goes to places because of people. When he went through Samaria, it was because of a certain woman at the well. When he went to Gadarene, it was because of a certain madman in Gadara. When Jesus goes, he goes for people. When Jesus moves and passes through Jericho to Jerusalem, he's indicating something in that trip that can help us move from the elementary things God promised us to the grand things God promised us. So the Bible declares Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. It's not the first time. When was the first time that Jesus entered and passed through Jericho? It was in Joshua chapter 6, because we know that the walls of Jericho fell because God in heaven passed through her. But when Jesus walks and passes through Jericho, he has memories of the first time that he passed through Jericho to let his Jerusalem people go. The first time Jesus passed through Jericho was with a shout. He went up with a shout. But don't forget that when Jesus went through Jericho, everything in Jericho came down. But he brought out a particular harlot called Rahab. That's Jesus. Now Jesus passes through Jericho and he brings out a certain man called Zacchaeus. Because in that day, Rahab the harlot was saved, although all of Jericho fell. In this day, Zacchaeus was saved and all of his household. So we learn something about Jesus. Every time Jesus goes through Jericho, passing through it to get to Jerusalem, somebody is saved. And that person is always and usually the worst of Jericho. When Jesus goes through Jericho, he gets the worst out. If city takers take down Jericho and they do not produce either Rahab or Zacchaeus, they failed. I hope you know this world is a type of Jericho. And heaven is a type of Jerusalem. Don't forget that when Jesus moved again from Jericho, from his cross to his throne, he went with an armed robber. Every time God moves, Jesus moves from Jericho to Jerusalem, somebody impossible is reconciled. It was a harlot the first time, first fruit of the conquest. It was a Zacchaeus the second time. The third grand time, he took a killer, an armed robber who deserved to die. I'm saying that in your plan to move from honey to milk or milk to honey, if witnesses of the blessing on your life don't rise with you, you will arrive at the pearl gate on the last day to discover that it was a waste. So if we have received Jesus, where we go, Jesus goes. As we walk through this Jericho world filled with the pain, the distractions, the trouble, the pressures, the bills, those towering walls that just will not come down, I want to remind you tonight that you are not allowed to go through this world and take the things God has promised you and not reproduce it in the lives of somebody else. And so your testimony is not complete if God brought you out of something that you haven't brought anybody else out from. The first question is really simple. Look at your life. I know you're expecting a lot of things for the Lord to do, but look at the ones he has done and ask yourself, have I built a system of rescue from the things that God has done for me while I wait to possess Jerusalem? That somebody who didn't have your encounter is enjoying the milk of it. City takers, this is the first secret. Don't leave Jericho if you can't find Rahab. Ask the person sitting next to you, are you producing disciples? Because in those precious souls lie God's heritage within the walls of the city that he has sent us to take.